Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, I am super excited today because it is September and I am back in production mode, and I'm thrilled that the first person I'm going to be talking about for this new fall series of podcast episodes is Dr. Shawn Powers. I got to meet Dr. Shawn Powers personally last year at the amazing Spiz and Spa retreat that the LCW puts on when I was speaking there. And she's been consistently doing a lot of amazing things within the chiropractic profession. And I'm really excited to learn more about Dr. Shawn Powers and welcome you to the show today. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. It was really exciting to meet you and sitting around the pool in Arizona because, I've been listening to your podcast and paying attention. And yeah, so it's always really nice to connect for real, right?
Yeah. And that is, it's a hard seminar to beat, I have to say, because it was just as much cool time and social time and learning and connecting, which is incredibly valuable for all of us as docs.
Well, I can't tell you how much I love hearing that because it's really a labor of love, and it's been a long time, working and developing that, and I'm so happy that so many people who are already doing so many great things find value in it because I'm sure, you've been around a long time. I've been around a long time. And some places that you go or events, they're just more for maybe beginning docs, right? Or unexperienced or, so I like the depth of that because it's all the layers of our life, right?
So before we dig into a little bit more about some of the ways that you're involved in chiropractic with the LCW and other things that you've done throughout your career, let's jump into like a quick snapshot of, give our listeners a take of it. Who is Dr. Shawn Powers? What are you doing? How would you summarize your life today with what you're doing?
Well, I kind of coined a phrase years ago when I was teaching at an event, and somebody was sharing with me about how they felt inhibited about talking about chiropractic or really telling people what they need. And I said, look, you have to realize you are chiropractic. And in that moment, I was like, wow, I am chiropractic. When I'm on the stage, when I'm speaking to an individual, if I'm on the plane, and if I'm at the table, I am chiropractic. When somebody looks at me, who I am, what I say, what I don't say, is how they define what chiropractic is. So I graduated a long time ago. I'm probably one of the most seasoned, still active in the profession. And I graduated in 1982, and I love chiropractic more today than I did then. I probably love it a little bit more each year, each month. It's just such the perfect time to be a chiropractor because when I started, I often joke that I'm so old that back then we didn't even know that the disc had nerve innervation, right? We were told that there was no such thing as neuroplasticity. And over the years, the research and, we knew standing at the table, I can tell you, I knew for certain that chiropractic changed your life, changed your brain, changed your organs, but there wasn't that body of proof. And so right now who I am is somebody who loves chiropractic more today than I did yesterday. I love the science, the research. I love the philosophy. I am like probably what you would define as a whole chiropractor. I don't leave behind my philosophy. I don't leave behind my science or my research. And I still, to this day, even though I think I'm one of the best adjusters on the planet, I still work on the art, right? Like I watch when other people are adjusting. I look, I went to a pediatric summit last year in Chicago and, watched Dr. Rosen and Doherty Blott and Claudia Yarnig and different people. So I'm still a student today in our field. So right now I live in California, recently moved here a couple of years ago. It's gorgeous. And I coach, I teach, I speak, and Yeah, I am chiropractic. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I love what you said about it being, well, first of so many things I want to pick apart there, but the fact that you love chiropractic more now after so many years in practice, can you expand? I mean, is it because of what you just shared about the research and the science catching up to what you observed, you know, anecdotally in your practice for all these years? Or is there something else that keeps you inspired as a chiropractor?
I think it is just the impact of it, and like I still get Christmas cards from kids who are babies in my practice who now have kids, and their kids have kids, and so I like the impact of it, the generational shift of it, the change of it. It's just sort of like an exciting thing. I used to be, I was an ICU nurse before I was a chiropractor. And the frustration of the most highly technologically advanced place in the hospital that people would still die, I'm driven to want to help people live long, live prosperously, live happily, live healthily. And I think chiropractic just fulfills all those drives, my inner drivers. It fulfills that connection piece, that heart piece, that contribution. I really feel like what we do in chiropractic is that it is enhancing somebody's ultimate potential.
Absolutely. Listeners, if you are not feeling that way today, really rewind that last sentence and think about how every adjustment that you deliver in your practice, regardless of your style of practice, whether you're sports oriented, whether you're family wellness, pediatric, every adjustment changes a person's expression, and that affects their whole life in a powerful way. And I love what you said about the impact and the ripple effect, right? You're getting Christmas cards from people now who you haven't seen in a number of years, but because their body is functioning at a higher level because of care that you provided, you made a change in their life that they are now able to go and share their expression with other people in their work and their families.
Right. Yeah, and I think that one of the things I often say is that every adjustment is a miracle. And people always are like, what do you mean by that? Well, we don't know. When we put that constructive force into that body, innate intelligence takes over and makes the adaptation that's necessary for first survival. And hopefully people are getting enough regular care that they go beyond survival to thrival, right? To like everything in their body, everything in their brain, everything in their creativity is expanding. So the way I think about this is that so many people are results-oriented or insurance-attached here in the United States. I coach people all over where there is no insurance, but, that idea of not being attached to a result, but knowing that if you make the right adjustment at the right time in the right way, that body is a miracle, and it's going to take that adjustment and do what's absolutely necessary. So that's, I think, also part of why I love it so much, is that I'm part of the grand design, basically.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I also want to dive. Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, how did you go from being a nurse to becoming a chiropractor?
Well, my birth father, died 1 month before I was 3. So my birthday is Monday, and he died August 9th, and I turned 3 September 9th. And so my whole growing up life was like, where's my daddy? And my mom had this thing that she didn't want to tell me he was dead for whatever reason. She'd be like, oh, he'll be home soon, don't worry. And eventually I figured out what that meant. And I can literally remember the day at the cemetery when I realized my dad was underneath that stone and I was never going to see him again. That kind of dictated the course of my life, that I wanted to do whatever it took to like prevent dads from dying. And so as I grew up, I was science-oriented. I started, again, way back when, traditionally, women would go to school and be nurses. And I went to nursing school, and I graduated. But listen to this. Divine design, I went to school in Davenport, Iowa. I went to an all-girl Catholic college, and like literally less than a half a mile was Palmer College of Chiropractic. So my very first night out, I met chiropractic students. And I didn't just meet any chiropractic student. I met a chiropractic student whose dads, two of them, whose dads were speakers at GE. And they were like, you don't want to be a nurse, you want to be a chiropractor. This is what it is. Come over to the house tomorrow. We're going to teach it to you, give you your first adjustment. And so I was absolutely taken with it, but I had already set my course. I was engaged at the time. The plan was I was going to get my degree, go back home, get married, be a nurse, etc. And literally within 3 months of working in ICU in the city of Chicago, where I grew up, one time I worked a double shift and I saw 12 people die.
Oh,
and
man.
that next morning, 12 people, and I'm like 20, and I'm already driven to prevent people from dying because I lost my dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like my dream of saving lives was like in my face that this was not the place to do it. And I had continued chiropractic care after I left school, went to a chiropractor in Chicago, and I was like, you know what? I need to go to chiropractic school because I didn't really get it, but innately I think I got that was a better way to save lives and change lives. Mm. So literally the fact that I saw 12 people die in a 16-hour period when I was very young, and it was incongruent with what my mission was, that's what made me go to chiropractic school.
That's incredible. And I'm sure that connection that you have to that starting point for you in your early days of your career is what continues to fuel you. And we often talk about your why and having a purpose in life, right? And staying connected to that. And I can just hear from your voice that you're still connected to that story.
Yeah, I have a picture of my family with my little brother was only 6 months old. I'm just standing at my dad's feet. And it's a black and white picture, and that sits on my desk to this day because it reminds me that I'm in a service to change lives. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like I'm compelled to talk about it, to teach it, to give people the opportunity, to take advantage of something that no other profession provides.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that in your
career,
it
is my way.
Yeah, in your career of running, practices and coaching others, there are many instances and sometimes ways that life will take us off course, right? People have personal challenges, health challenges, maybe injuries, things that would easily take your focus off and can get you distracted from your why. Have you ever had any moments in your career that were particularly tricky for you to navigate and get reconnected to your purpose or get back on track with, your practice goals or anything that caused you to shift your focus?
A lot has happened to me in my life. A lot of deaths, because again, I have a big family, right? Mm-hmm. So I've lost relatives, young relatives, tragically I've lost, a lot of loss has kind of permeated that. I went through a divorce. I've had a dear friend of mine lose her husband. I've had a lot of things like that. And I think what's always helped me stay on course, and I will tell you, even though today I'm absolutely clear. I was really in a stage of making that clear in action over the years. So I wasn't like the perfect chiropractor, ran a beautiful practice, always knew what I was doing or said the right thing. But what I did is I invested in coaches all my life. And I will tell you that I was, when I graduated from school, I was married at the time. Both of us were new grads. We had no money. We couldn't get a loan to open up a practice. And so the decision was made that because I could make more money as a nurse, he would work in an office as an associate until we could get more money. And one day, this guy took us to a seminar, and I was like astounded. I was like, okay, this is not that hard. I'm quitting nursing tomorrow, and we are going to rock and roll. We don't need a loan. We can make money. and serve people and change lives. So initially, like, somebody introduced me to a seminar, and that seminar was coaching based. And so every coach that's ever been out there almost, I probably have utilized in the seasons of my life and the seasons of my practice. Well, not every coach, but and so I think that that's always helped me in my dark days, in my challenging times, in the periods of loss or doubt or economic shifts or change. I've always had somebody who either was, you know, the cheerleader that you might need, the kick in the butt you might need, the voice of reason or reality, and somebody who had systems, like, because I'm a nurse and a scientist, systems are really vital to me. I operate better with a system, and I figure out what works and what doesn't work. So, yeah, for me, during the hard times in life and or practice, the things that always got me through was learning, either through coaching, through seminars, through reading, sometimes chiropractic, sometimes not chiropractic, but I'm a sponge, right? I want to try things, listen to things, and see what would work. Because for me, failure wasn't an option because I'm on a mission.
Yeah, and sometimes people on the outside looking in can always give you a different perspective, right? I think I always joke, like, we're all caught up in our own stories and our own stuff sometimes, right? And good times and bad times, people on the outside, whether they're mentors or coaches or colleagues, friends, even patients sometimes, can call us out on some of the things that, you know, might not be true, you know, and just give us the direction that we need. That was great advice there. What would you say would be, with your clients right now, one of the biggest challenges that you observe they might be having in their practice life?
I would say it's typically two things. One is like balancing it all, you know, like the drive that they might have and how much they want to drive to succeed for practice, and the drive to be an extraordinary mother, partner, woman, in, you know, or man in the world besides and outside of practice. So sometimes that conflict, right?
Right.
Right? Of how do we really achieve balance, or is there really anything, is balance even a reality, right?
Right. What do you think?
I always
Is it a
think
reality?
we're just on a it's balance. You know, that idea of striving for balance. Yeah. I believe that it's like a teeter-totter, right? You know, like you go up, you go down, you hold it for a second, and there's like a little wiggle, and you know, it's you're both on the same plane, but it doesn't last very long. Right. And I love. I go to a church here periodically that Rick Warren speaks at, and he wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And the reason why that resonates with me is because since I became a chiropractor, I feel like I've been on a purpose. So he says that what he discovered in life, like when his book was first becoming big and he was making it and his church was growing, his wife got breast cancer. And then his son killed himself. And then, you know, so he's like, he realized that we're on a track, like the track of everything's good and wonderful and happy, and the other track where things are disintegrating, right? Or not exactly what you thought that they were going to be. And so I gave up a long time ago. Like, I've been more passion focused. What brings me joy? What turns me on? What resonates with my values? Like, one of my core values is contribution. And so I think that one of the things that we could be conscious of is how we're defining things and what we're striving for. And so with my clients, I work on that drive between success and how they define it, you know, not just in life, in practice, in marriage, in being a mother or a father, you know, like that's often the time that I see that people need the most help is how they define things and how do they live congruently with their definition, their core values, et cetera. And then the second, probably most common thing is leadership and team engagement. Like, because, we are all about, most of us, or at least a lot of the people I coach, is like, we're on a mission, right? We want to change the world through chiropractic. And how do you get somebody who maybe just wants a job? How do you hire the cream of the crop? How do you, right hiring is a skill that a lot of chiropractors don't have. That's a skill set. And then how do you retain extraordinary CAs?
Mm-hmm. I'd love to circle back to
the two things.
Yeah, the idea of success. I was just talking to someone earlier today about defining success. And is it so many times people define their success by one dimension of their life? And I think if we look at who we are as whole individuals, I mean, I can only speak to how I define it for myself. And I would love to hear how you have started to define success for yourself. But for me, I look at how am I showing up as a parent, in a relationship, how healthy am I? How am I showing up in my community? How much, am I able to provide the lifestyle financially that I dream of for myself and for my family? Do I feel like I'm contributing, like you said, professionally? Where do I get those feelings of worthiness and success, where they come from? Because I don't think they just come from one part of our life. I think that when people chase them only, for example, in their financial success, then they realize that they're feeling a gap in their fulfillment in their relationships, or maybe their health has been challenged. And so when you've worked with people and tried to help them find out what success means to them, what are some of the biggest tips that you've been able to share with them? Or maybe a better way to phrase it is, what's the insight that you would share with someone else to help them find it?
I'm a big believer in asking questions, because when we ask questions, we very rarely will lose our way, right?
Right.
So think about it. If you're driving somewhere and you don't have a GPS, or the days before GPS, you either had a map or you pulled over if you got lost, or where's this or where's that. And I think our life is the exact same way. We have to ask the right questions. And earlier you said something that I wanted to go back to is it true? Right? You said sometimes somebody can see something from the outside. And so one of the most common questions I ask people is that true? Right? I want you to ask that when you have a belief or a concern or a challenge. The first thing you have to do is ask yourself, is this true? And then if it is true, what can I do about it? Right? Or what can I learn from it? So in terms of success, I'll go back to my mom. My mom had 7 children. 5 all in a row, 2 later. My dad died. She remarried later. There was 3 children that my dad, my stepdad, I just called him my dad though, because he came into my life when I was about 7. And when she died, my dad asked me to do her eulogy. And years ago for Mother's Day, I had given her a card, and on the front of the card was Ralph Waldo Emerson's quote about success. And so at my mom's funeral, part of her eulogy was when I was at her house preparing for the funeral, that card had been underneath the glass on her dresser for as long as I could remember. And I pulled it out and I read it. And, it's a beautiful poem. So if you haven't read it, I would recommend getting it. If you look on Facebook, I post it periodically. But one of the statements in this poem is to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. And I feel like if we're defining success, for me, success is that I made a difference while I was here, whether it was opening a door for a mom with, the twins and the 7,000 pounds of stuff she has to carry with her, whether it's, that loving adjustment, that smile, that prayer for somebody, something I've done for my kids or my husband. It's like, how am I showing up each day and being the best version of myself and making somebody else's life better because I'm existing? And so for my clients, I just ask, what do you want? Like if you were going to be dead between 1 and 3 years from now, what do you want your family to say about you? Your family meaning your mom, your dad, your kids, your aunts, your uncles, like your whole family. What do you want them to say about you? Number 2, what do you want your community to say about you, whether that includes your patients, however you're involved in your community? What do you want the profession to say about you? And if you were dead between 1 and 3 years and you knew you only had this much time left, would you do anything differently than you are today? And I like them to spend time in reflection and keep going back to that and write down as if there's no time, no money, no limits about country or conditions. Like you just like let it come out of you, honest, real, raw. And that will give you the answers for how to live your life. If your life was going to be gone, or if you were going to be diagnosed with the inability, a terminal illness or something like that. So, for me, because I've seen so many people die, 3 years ago, we lost my 30-year-old niece. She had a seizure and died, and that shook our family to the core. It shook my brother, shook my sister-in-law, shook me, but the good thing is I didn't have to say, am I living my life the way I want if it was taken away today? Because that's kind of been in the, losing a dad young, seeing people die in ICU, all those different things along the way always makes me examine. This is all I have. Am I doing it the way I want to do it today? And I think the problem is with most people, they don't stop, and they don't reflect, and they don't check in.
Yeah, they don't stop to think about, is this congruent? I love what you talked about earlier about your values and living congruently with your values, because I think sometimes we get caught up in the busyness of life, and months go by, and it can be really easy to get disconnected from that core and that why that you have for yourself and that check-in.
Right. And it's like kids are, I always had a very large pediatric practice. I took care of kids before there was even a spectrum. You got to realize I've been around a long time. There was no such thing as a pediatric chiropractor. We were chiropractors and we took care of kids, right? And I think about because I would be walking through the office with kids attached to my legs. I'd be adjusting, it was heaven to me. But the more you're around kids, I think the more you're capable of realizing the importance of present time consciousness. And also that everything is temporary. So if life is so perfect right now, oh my gosh, that's just temporary, because something's going to happen, and something happens and it's destructive or tragic, and that's just temporary too, right? And so I think when you can operate out of present time consciousness and realizing that this too is going to pass. So if it's beautiful, man, soak it in, drink it up, enjoy it, right? And if it's tragic, what are you going to get from it? What are you going to learn from it? What's the lesson in it? How's it going to shape your character so that you have a bigger vision or a bigger purpose?
Yeah, and it gave me chills when you said that quote. Was it Ralph Waldo Emerson? To know a person has lived even easier because of your life?
Right. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived.
Yeah,
right.
I feel like I had that on a photo card in my home at some point. It gave me chills just thinking about that, because that's always been a guiding principle for me too. I think, we often want to make the big difference and get really caught up in bigger, more. And then it's sometimes that, the person that really you're going to make the difference in their life might be your child, right? It might be an innocent moment where you connect with a stranger and you don't know that impact that moment might have on the rest of their day. Right. And so there's these moments in our life that we can impact other people outside of our practices, in our homes, in our communities, that can define us and can define our own success too. So I love that you shared that. And I wanted to just wrap up here. So many things I would love to keep talking with you about, but I know we have to respect your time. But you said earlier, way at the beginning, we talked about how much you love chiropractic. And you said something about, it's the perfect time to be a chiropractor. And I think, I look at my practice, I feel very similar. 18 years later, I love chiropractic more than I did when I first graduated. But there's other parts of our profession right now, both in Canada and the United States, and throughout the world for that matter, where it is a challenging time to be a chiropractor. And I would love to hear And this would maybe be a good way to wrap up the show today, how you would phrase that, or what advice you would give to docs out there right now.
First of all, I think they have to protect themselves. And what I mean by that is most of us are health driven. That doesn't mean we don't eat candy or have a vodka or, eat popcorn or something. But for the whole of our life, we're pretty careful about what we put into our body. So I think what is happening is you have to protect what you're listening to, who you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're believing. Like the fact that people are struggling, I think, is that it is because they're putting themselves in the center instead of being compassionate and removing themselves from the center and thinking about being in service. I mean, Melissa, you and I know we literally have a service that changes somebody's brain and changes their brain and allows their body to better adapt, to heal, to repair, and to regenerate. And so if you know this, but you're inhibited in sharing it, talking about it, it's usually because you're putting yourself in the center. You care more about what people think about you, or there's all these self-inhibiting mechanisms. And I think when you step into the shoes of a servant and that you know that you have a service that literally saves and changes people's lives, you can't help but be successful. Because when people hear what it is chiropractic does, what person in their right mind doesn't want that? And that's why, I have a person in one of my clients who has a phenomenal practice, has built a beautiful family practice over the years, has had some health challenges. Her practice is so healthy, so robust. It's almost like too much. It's the cost of it, the mechanics of it is like, most people are like, whoa, I don't know if I could do that. And so I think that we have almost created chiropractors who are, and I'm not saying like right or wrong if you adjust one person a day or 100 people, that's irrelevant. But I think we've become more about us than we have about the people and the service we deliver. And so I think if people are struggling, they need to clean up who they're spending time with, what they're listening to, what they're reading, where they spend. Like, you look on Facebook, and I go off of Facebook a lot because it will make you crazy believing that there's challenges, right? And
Absolutely.
People oftentimes, right, they're looking for answers outside instead of inside. It's just not hard to be successful in chiropractic right now if you find the right coach, mentor, seminar, go visit other offices. That was something I've always done. To this day I do. I love to see what's happening in other offices because it stimulates creativity and certainty. So I guess I would say work on your confidence, your faith, confidence, and belief in yourself first. Work on you first. That's how you become the most successful. In your faith, confidence, and certainty and belief of chiropractic. And then work on your courage to do what needs to be done. Because we are in a world full of sick and suffering, medicated, kids on the spectrum, all these things being done to kids that, I, for one, don't want to stand for that. I want to stand against it. California just passed that, immunization the other day. Yeah. We have bad and nasty laws.
Yeah, there's that fine line between wanting to be informed and getting involved, and then not letting it consume you, and so that you don't see all the good that is still happening in the world and in your own life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think if you have a mission, if you're here for, if chiropractic to you is a job or a hobby, you might tend to struggle more than some. Because look, there are a lot of easy ways you can make money, right? And there's a lot of professions and a lot of things that you can do, especially if you've already graduated from chiropractic. You're educated, right? You have the ability to study, to retain, to pass tests, right? So if whatever brought you here, and maybe you just thought it was going to be a good job, I think get around people who can show you how it can be super fun, super good, super easy. Not like easy, because there's always stuff we have to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. It can be simple. I will tell you, the more complex a practice is, the less money it makes and the harder it is.
You know what I love about what you just said is that we just launched a new Rockstar Doctor Life program called Your Simple Practice. I definitely agree with you in that people that running a great practice that is fulfilling, that it provides an income for your family, that gives you joy, makes an impact in your community, does not have to be a complicated endeavor. And I think, I can only speak again for myself personally, but I know that the more I have simplified my life and my business model, the more my income and my impact has gone up. So I'm with you 100% there.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's prosperity issues in the profession. And again, I think, I can remember when I was a student nurse, we had to go into schools and teach people how to brush and floss. Like that was part of our student education, like going in and part of our clinical work. And, I've gone into schools and taught people about their health and their spine. And the kids are like, yes, I want that. Turn my power on, reconnect me. Right. Mm-hmm. And so there are people out there campaigning for, brush your teeth, floss, et cetera, wear your seatbelts, eat your 5 veggies a day. But you don't see any of us. No, I shouldn't say you don't see any of us, but it's like it needs to become credible and valid in society. It's not a necessity. It's not a luxury. But that campaign, as I like to think of it, is we just campaign by teaching people reality, and they'll want it, and literally people are going to want to come to your practice, whether you want to practice. Like I have some clients who practice half-time, part-time, and are full-time parents. That's their choice, right? Yeah. I have other people who have no children, and they're, driving in their practice. So, whatever your desire is, when you get clear about what it is you want, that's important. You need to work on your confidence and your courage to be able to execute it. There is nothing you can't do if you make up your mind. And it's morally and ethically good for your community.
I agree 100%. And, it's funny because right before you and I jumped on this interview today, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she's possibly going to be making a shift in her practice style. And we were talking about that, saying, there is no blueprint. There are some secrets to success. Absolutely. There's some clinical techniques. There's communication strategies for sure. But otherwise, you get to make the rules about how you express chiropractic in your own business. And whether you want to be an associate, or you want to work part-time or full-time, or maybe you want to be a CEO and not even provide any clinical care. There's so many options. And the more clear we get as individuals on what our true strengths and gifts are and how we want to contribute to the profession, then everyone is happier because you're actually delivering, in a way that's more congruent with who you are and aligned with who you are.
Well, and that's such a brilliant statement. Like, know who you are, know your strengths, take behavioral tests, do DISC, do strength finders, because it's not that hard to, most people always want to work on their weaknesses, and that's just not the best strategy, right? You work to your strengths. You create, everything about your life and your business to your strengths, and you shore it up with other people. The bigger your vision, usually the more support you need. But once you know you, and that's a big part of my coaching with my teams, is we really do DISC evaluation, and we do 360 so that we know how to better lead, manage, and communicate with each other. So that, I think, Melissa, what you just said is that, that's a key piece that people, they think they know themselves, but oftentimes they know the version of themselves they wish they were, but aren't.
Oh, that's a great way to I like that you just said that, but I also love that you said, once you've done all these things, work on your courage to actually be who you need to be and show up and run the kind of practice that you want, and stand up for the things that you believe in and speak your truth, because I think that's a reminder that we all could use at any given moment of time. I mean, there's a lot of times there's fears and insecurities and stressors that come up, and it takes courage to keep moving forward in life sometimes.
Absolutely. There's, and I think if you keep staying focused on your why, like we started from the beginning, then it's not as hard to be courageous because it's bigger than you. Not to say it's always going to be easy, but yeah, find the way.
You have to, if you have a purpose that's bigger, then it'll always keep you grounded. And, a lot of times people, and I'm sure you've had this in your experience too, because I can hear the enthusiasm and the excitement and everything that you're sharing, after having such an amazing career within private practice and now coaching, you're excited because you're doing work that matters to you and that you're engaged and you love it and you're inspired. And I feel the exact same way. You'll often see me, if I'm not in my practice, I'm on my laptop or I'm connected with clients or doing other things, but none of it really seems like work to me, because I really feel like it's part of my mission and my purpose to not only help my people in my practice express their best potential, but our clients as well. And when you're aligned with that, it's such a beautiful place to be and to live. So thank you for reminding me of that today. And I'm sure that our listeners, I took so many notes here from today, and I really appreciate your time and the insight that you have. Any final thoughts something that you wish all chiropractors knew before we wrap up today?
I think that if you understand that you have the power in your heart, you have the power in your two hands, and as BJ always said, your anchored mind. So you have the power to literally change this world, and now's the time to do it. Holding back.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to say anything else after that. That was a great way to end this show.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. What an honor. And thanks for all you're doing out there, sharing all this information with people.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.